prosecution outlined how accounting practices of comedy fucking did not.
What kind of likeness is that? If they were great artists, they'll be in a museum.
Evidence today may signal at least one.
You fucking father for cartoonists now?
You're listening to another episode of Gutter Boys. Gutter Boys is a small press comics podcast about the ins, the outs, the highs, and the very deep lows of making comics. I am your host, JB, with my co-host, Cam. Today's guest is all the way from Los Angeles, California. Many of you already know him. He's a comic writer and overall good guy, Aubrey Sitterson. We talk about his new book, or I guess plural books, because he's got a couple in the bag, but before we get into that, we should cover some shout-outs and news.
Yeah, and real quick, I'm actually not on the interview with Aubrey, sadly. My internet went out, and Spectrum told me I needed a new router. I went the next morning and got a new router. Turned out it was an outage, and yeah, so they wasted my fucking time. So, Spectrum's to blame for that one. But I look forward to hearing the conversation, and I told Aubrey that he had to come back sometime to talk with me as well. So if he is a man of his word, he will return. Maybe on Patreon, though.
Yeah, we'll definitely have him back on for a bonus episode.
Yeah. But yeah, so let's get into shout outs real quick. If you want us to shout you out on the show, we love comics here at the Gutter Boys. You can DM us at GutterBoysPod on Instagram or email us at gutterboyspodcast@gmail.com. We will send you our addresses and you can send us some comics. We will read them, let you know what we think about them, possibly. And, definitely shout you out on the show. So let's go ahead and shout out a couple people here. Since we've been recording these, a little in advance, we've got a couple to shout out here. But first off, Kyle Bravo sent us a couple mini comics that were done in the pandemic. Really cool stuff. You can find him online at Kyle_Bravo_ on Instagram. Clusterfucks Comics also sent us the first issue of their anthology, and they are on Instagram as well at Clusterfucks Comics. Fucks is F-U-X though.
Also, listener of the show, Mary Shine, we had mentioned that she had sent over some really, really sick Peanuts merch, which was really sweet of her. But she also sent over her book that she debuted at SPX at 2019 called Get Over It.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and check that out if you haven't. She also wrote us a nice little letter. It reads, had to send you all some comics after listening to the Sam Zabo episode. Shout out, Sam. I debuted this comic at SPX 2019 intending to contour it in 2020, but then, it's self-published. Went through Sean Knickerbocker's Job, Bookmobile. They are true pros. Was reading a bunch of Ron Mahaf and other 90s shonen manga while I drew this one. Love the podcast so much. Really appreciate y'all for shouting out the egregious simping in comics. Stay gutter. Love, Mary.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
I really, really appreciate all the stuff you sent over. Your book looks really, really great. And of course, we like a nice little letter. That's always appreciated.
Absolutely. And you can find Mary on Instagram at Myrtle Willoughby. And it actually looks like the link to buy Get Over It is literally getoverit.lol. So if you type in getoverit.lol into your browser, it'll direct you to Mary's Big Cartel, and you can get a copy of this book. It's really nice. 2-color, black and orange inks. Really good stuff there.
Also, big shout out to listener of the show, Rob Mursky, who sent over us a bunch of his books.
Yeah, from the Read More Comics crew.
Yes, and they all look really, really great.
Mm-hmm.
He also included a letter as well. It reads, big fan of the Gutter Boys and the Gutter community in general. Finally, someone talking about comic topics. I'm interested, or at least talking shit. Entertaining regardless. I found you through our mutual hate of Piss Score, but I stayed for everything else. Great show, great guests. Anyways, here's my new books, Sludgy. Sludgy first appeared in my old collectives, Read More Comics, you know the one, anthology series. but I wouldn't let kayfabe ruin my character, so they get their own series. Sludgy lives. Anyways, I've rambled enough. See you in the gutter, Rob Mirsky. P.S. Enjoy a bunch of RMC classics. You can see what all the hype is about. LOL, hype.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rob, for sending over those books. And again, nice letter.
Absolutely. And I actually read all those Read More Comics books in a sitting, and it's cool. It's like a 3-man anthology thing with continuing stories throughout them. And, you know, David Craig also has work in there, and I'm a really big fan of his. He's the dude who sent us over those Brick comics, and he does such good work without using, you know, very, very little dialogue and sparse, you know, words in his comic. I definitely recommend picking these up. I think that they're done with Read More Comics. I think they're branching out and all going solo, but they're all still cool. You can find Rob online at Mersktoons, though, and he actually sent us a website too. Oh, and if you want to pick up those sludgy books, you can go to www.mymovingparts.com.
Awesome. All right. So a lot of the news that we're going to be covering is not breaking, which wouldn't matter anyway, because by the time this episode goes live, it would be about 2 weeks old. So
yeah,
whatever. It's all relative. So trigger warning for this bit of news that we're going to be covering. Again, not new. This happened back in February 14th of 2021. So if you are sensitive to child abuse, sexual assault, yep.
Yeah, you know, just fast forward a little bit. We just want to, you know, be upfront with our listeners. There will be a little bit of happy news towards the end of the first segment. So I don't know, skip ahead 5-7 minutes. Who knows?
This news
Fuck
came
around
out
and
of
find out.
Yeah. This news came out of Salt Lake City. A certain Comicsgate creator, James Randall Adams, also known as Slick Jimmy on Twitter. He was arrested on charges of child pornography, specifically downloading 2,905 files of child pornography. That's a lot of child pornography.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Law enforcement were alerted back in January by the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children by way of the company Synchronos Technologies, Inc., with the cyber tip. The company reported that James Randall Adams had downloaded photographs or videos of child abuse or exploitation material on November 18th, 2020. It looks like he was detained, and according to the affidavit, downloaded depictions of nude female juveniles that were found on Adams' device from the cyber tips, resulting in a subsequent search warrant. During the active search warrant, Adams' phone, a Black Galaxy Note 9, was located, and the phone number and IMEI were confirmed to match the suspect device in the cyber tip. That's pretty wild that this guy was just like using his mobile phone to look up child porn. That's crazy.
Wild flex. Dude, have you seen this guy's mugshot?
Yeah, he looks insane.
Well, I mean, like, he's got patches of hair and it's like shaved. Like, he's bald like Lex Luthor, but he has random patches of hair.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He looks insane.
Yeah,
like, he looks absolutely unhinged.
Yeah, wow. This is the real Joker.
So we'd never really heard about this guy before.
Yeah, I actually tried to Google him to see what he had done previously, and I'm not seeing any books. It's just saying that he's a Comicsgate affiliate. Yeah,
so he successfully funded his creator-owned comic back in December of 2018 called Little Girl Lethal. You can still find this via any simple Google search. So if you are the curious type and want to see what a pedophile's comic would look like, it basically looks like what you think it would look like.
Yes.
It is wild, does not even begin to describe this thing. And this is just the pitch. This isn't even a full comic. It's just what he was selling.
Yeah.
So, it's like mostly just upskirt shots of a underage girl and then her getting abused and assaulted through bondage of some kind.
What can only be described as what gives me vibes from Ed Pisker's New Red Room, to be honest.
So there is one particular page in this Indiegogo that straight up looks like a pinup from our friend Piskor's new quote-unquote outlaw comic that he's making, which, respect. But it's pretty wild that, here's the thing, Ed, you're not going to outlaw a pedophile.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, that is a losing contest. You're not, you have nothing to gain from that. So, but hey, we respect the hustle. So
yeah.
Keep on keeping on.
Get your money, dude.
Yes.
For the cam girls.
And then in an unrelated little bit of news, this came out in 2019. So likely this particular post probably happened in 2018, I'm going to guess. Dave Sims, creator of Cerebus and world-renowned insane person. Allegedly insane.
Yeah.
Somebody had screenshot a comment that he had left on his Cerebus blogspot. And in it, he basically admits to grooming a child for sexual purposes. Which is, again, weird flex. Not really sure why that's something you would want to admit on your blogspot as some sort of high point in your career, but okay.
Right.
It's fucking wild. It reads, I'm glad you like the mouth because I'm guessing this is a reply to a commenter, but it says, I'm glad you like the mouth because that's what I was trying to capture. Blank. I'm assuming to protect the identity of this individual. It says blank was the underage one, 14, ? Jesus. When I met her at a convention, wanting her Cerebus collection signed. It was a very hard lesson in what happens when romance and lust and protectiveness, and then he has this in parentheses, because she was a child. Dave? Child? You protect children. You don't hustle them.
Right.
Dave, get rolled up together. I didn't have sex with her until she was 21, and we broke up 3 months after her 22nd birthday. The bottom right one on the sketchy page, that was the closest I got to what her mouth looked like. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, wow.
She was tiny and physically perfect in my eyes. Fucking God. I was ready to move to England and live there when she got accepted to a school in London, along the lines of, I have the ass of a 20-year-old. Sheck blank arrived at PH6 and informed me that a lesbian friend of hers had told her she had perfect breasts. So Dave Sims, having a normal one again, just
continuing to cement his legacy.
As being completely insane, right?
Yeah, Jesus fucking Christ.
Gotta respect the consistency, though.
Yeah, I guess, man. So while we're talking about creeps in comics, let's go ahead and bring up Mr. Savage Dragon and one of the Image founding forefathers himself, Mr. Eric Larson. Larson, in a series of now deleted tweets that I have screenshotted because screenshots are forever, baby. Larson quote tweeted a tweet, and the tweet that he quote tweeted said, "What 38-year-old man wants to date a 17-year-old girl?" So Larson quote tweeted it and wrote, "Is this a trick question?" with a question mark. So, kind of shady. He didn't have to go further, but he did.
Keep going.
So
There's
you
more.
open up the replies to this tweet, and Larson doubles down and says, around 38 is when a lot of men have a midlife crisis, long for their youth, and pursue younger women. The age of consent is different from state to state, but it's either 16, 17, or 18 years of age. The most common age of consent is 16 in the U.S. and in most other Western countries. So now we have Larson going full Chester Brown on us, explaining laws of consent.
Yeah. He's just like,
every state I do a con in, if I appear, it's only if it's 16.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
every month I check every state's law.
This is already a bad look. So if you're already doubling down and tweeting about this, what should you do? Well, no, you're not rational if you're in this situation, but you would think you would let a sleeping dog lie. But no. Larson follows up with another tweet. Is it creepy? Absolutely. But don't pretend it's not common for older men to pursue younger women. Hell, Jerry Lee Lewis married his 13-year-old cousin, and granted, it killed his career, but it still happened.
I feel like he's getting the wrong takeaway from that.
Yes. Is he willing to risk it all? Because he's like, hey, it happened. I don't even know.
Well, I mean, just the line of reasoning just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And honestly, why even take a public opinion stand? Because he deleted the tweets because obviously people were quote tweeting him and dunking on him and so forth. But it's why even share this shit publicly? You shouldn't even be having these thoughts anyways. But to share them publicly is a whole other fucking line of thinking that I can't even begin to comprehend. This
is shit you would say to your therapist, not on a public forum.
And your therapist should report you to the authorities, even though this is an ACAB show. No, I'm just... Yeah, so it's just kind of bizarre. And these are just the vocal minority. You got to think about how many of these dudes are just fucking chilling in the cut, just waiting for, one of these younger girls to answer their DMs and think they're in the clear. We should reboot To Catch a Predator, where it's just you and I setting up sting operations with any cartoonist over the age of 40, and we just pretend we're underage girls, and then we walk out instead of Chris Hansen. We'd probably have a couple seasons worth of material, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right, so we got some good news. We might as well get to that.
Yeah.
Now.
So, This is not paid content, and I don't know much about this outside of, what's been presented to us as far as when I say us, like the followers on Instagram. But this is just something interesting that I wanted to bring up. Instagram user And So Luke, no spaces, looks like their real name is Luke Kruger Howard, put out a book called Goes, Goes, and you can actually get a free copy of this comic if you go to goesbooks.com. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up is I was telling JB off air, the publishing model on this is very interesting because it's a not-for-profit model. So what it is, from the Instagram post, it says, Goes Books is a new small press experiment. I want to share it and my new comic with you. Head to goesbooks.com to get your free copy and learn more. So what it is if you go to this website, it's a 100-page comic that is professionally printed. It looks great as far as the printing is concerned. The book has a spine and everything like that, but you can sign up and get a copy for free. You literally just put in your address and, no questions asked, gets you a free copy. However, after you claim your free copy, a pop-up box comes up and it asks you if you want to donate $4 to supply a free copy to other people that would be interested in this comic. So, I signed up for the free copy and I paid $4 or whatever it was just to kind of pay it forward. But Luke ended up making another post today on Instagram that said 680 people have signed up to get a copy. 233 people paid it forward so that 700 strangers can now get a copy of the comic. So out of the, almost 700 copies that were distributed, a little less than half paid, and therefore 700 more people can now get this book for free. So even if you continue to just get that smaller amount of people paying it forward, it seems like it's a win-win. And I just thought it was an interesting thing to bring up on the show because, you're not going to make any money publishing this way, but if your goal is to get a comic out there and read, I think it's a really interesting approach. What do you think about it?
This sounds like socialism to me. And I don't sign off on anything that Putin would approve.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I think this is a great idea. I'm actually kind of surprised that this has not been attempted before.
Yeah, and maybe it has, and I just haven't heard of it. But I saw a lot of people sharing it on Instagram. So I don't know. I'd never heard of the cartoonist before. I'm stoked to check out their work, and I just think it's really cool. It kind of sucks because if you're in comics to kind of make money or break even or something, obviously this is not the way to go. But at the end of the day, it's almost just like free advertising to cultivate an audience, though, in a way.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd imagine that he'll definitely get more people interested in what he's doing now because of this project.
Mm-hmm. And it's not some...
So it's a win-win.
Yeah, it's not some throwaway publication. The book actually has production value to it. When you go to a show and you get something free, usually it's not that cool.
Right, like a newsprint comic or something that's looks like a newspaper.
Yeah.
And it says free on it.
Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that on this episode?
Why not? We might as well.
All right. So we're not going to name names here because I'm not trying to punch, anybody punch on the same level on indie comics as us. But this is just a cautionary tale. I got wind of a publication that is a free publication like we were just discussing. And the catch is that instead of, you being a cartoonist or an artist and being asked to be published in the pages of this publication, you pay $50 per page to have your art featured in it. So the publisher, who I'm not going to name right now, is passing the buck along to the actual artists. And I'm a firm believer that, sometimes, I've worked for free and I've done comics for books for free before. That's inevitable. You're going to have friends and, publications that you just want to, be involved with, and you're going to work for little to no money. But to ask artists to foot the bill for printing, this is something I'd never heard of before. And honestly, I just think it's kind of gross. If you're a free publication, it's cool that you want to distribute people's work, but as far as getting the printing bill paid, why wouldn't you just get advertisers at this point? Or, try to get a grant, like an art grant in your community. Or, and another thing is this publication also has a Patreon. So it's even if the Patreon's not super successful, there is still a little money going into this publication, and they're still asking the artists to foot the bill, $50 a page. Now, in their defense, I heard that, they give out comp copies, but at the end of the day, if you're an artist, you're not making any money back because how are you going to sell something that says free on it?
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like Peter Griffin here on what grinds my gears. But as, someone in small press comics, if anybody ever presented this deal to me, I would literally fucking laugh at them. And if I didn't respect them, I would tell them to go fuck themselves. So if you ever get approached by a publication that wants you to pay to be printed, one, that sounds like a pyramid scheme, so you shouldn't do it in the first place. But 2, just don't do it. Have more respect for yourself as an artist. If you're really into the idea of, like, you know, for an example, there are printers out there that, you know, if you do a 3 or 4 page comic at $50 a page, you're paying $150 to $200 to be in this publication, right? You can literally print your own comic for less than $100. You can get like 40 copies. You can send those fucking things, you know, to comic stores and say, hey, give these out to free to your customers. Like, if you're really interested in losing money by making comics, you might as well make like a whole 16 to 20 page book and give those out for free, because it's going to be the same price as you paying $50 a page.
Right.
So, you know, just all I want to say is, you know, not trying to drag anybody, but if for some reason someone involved with this publication hears this, yeah, change your fucking business model. Nobody wants, I mean, obviously people do want to pay to be in this thing, but I think that, you know, we talked to somebody that had been published there and they said they just thought that's how anthologies worked. So...
Damn.
I mean, you know, if you're hunting for new artists, you know, you're setting a bad precedent for what we should expect in this industry. And all I'm saying is do better.
Yeah. It's not good to signal to other people or other publishers to be like, hey, you could get these idiots to pay you to print their stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's just what kind of, like, I don't know. Like, I don't see how anybody could see this and be like, this is good for comics.
Yeah, this is
you know?
Like, the only thing, you know, I could equate it to, and I was saying this before we started recording, is like you're paying for advertising. But, you know, even if you have, like, you know, the argument is, oh, I have something for free to give out, you know, on my table. It's like, how many, you know, I said it earlier, but how many fucking free things have you ever gotten at a show and been like, I'm so glad I got this? Usually it ends up in the trash.
Yeah, I'm so glad I got this Fast and Furious tote bag.
Yeah, yeah.
What? Talking about?
Actually, I mean, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, Blake would actually love that. Another way.
I'm sorry that I got this Eureka, the canceled ABC show.
Yeah,
bag.
Yeah.
Or whatever fucking
I got my
network it was
Deadly
on.
Class lanyard.
Yeah.
You know, like, who fucking cares? Like, nobody wants that.
My Walking Dead season premiere button that literally has a date and time on it.
Yeah. So it seems like a very stupid idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, look, I don't think there's any ill will intended with this.
I would like to think not. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that whoever is responsible for this is likely seeing this from like a pragmatic standpoint and be like, no, this is good. This is good for comics, and this is a way for us to sustain the print. And yeah, sure, I guess. But also, you're like signaling to other cartoonists who maybe haven't done this long enough to be like, yeah, your work is not really worth anything, and in fact, you should pay me for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you have the privilege of being published, and I am the, you know, the dictator here. I don't know. Like, I know the person that, well, I don't know them, but like, you know, I've seen the person online that is behind this. You know, I want to say they're like in editing or something like that with it, and I really don't believe that they have any malicious intent, like you said. So that's kind of why I don't want to name names or anything like that. But I can't see how, as an artist, you would sit around and think this is a great business model. I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird. It rubs me the wrong way.
I mean, it probably is a good business model for them.
Yeah, I mean, because they're passing the buck off. But I mean, as far as like, you know, wanting to foster a community where we're all getting paid for our work, you know, and like I said, it's not even about the pay sometimes. Sometimes you work for free or cheap. It's just really weird to me that it's like a reverse page rate. Like, it's just fucking bizarre that it even exists in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for one, I don't know what community this is for. The community, by and large, knows that everything is DIY for the most part.
Yeah.
If you want to make a comic, you go and you write it, you draw it, you print it, you go to fucking Kinko's or some shit, and you make a zine.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's been done forever. And the beauty of it is that it is entirely democratic. Anyone could do this. It's not expensive. It'll take you a little bit of time to, you know, go about printing, collating, cutting, and stapling. Mm-hmm. Sure. But at the end of the day, your budget is going to be minimal for producing this.
Right.
And so the idea that paying someone $50 per page of your work to get it printed is somehow a positive thing for the community of comics people, I just don't see the argument there.
Yeah, same here. I don't either at all, really.
Yeah, it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
I like, we don't need these anthologies. We don't need these books. People can just make their own stuff and release it on their own terms. And then they get to pocket everything because they made it. Mm-hmm. And that's how it should be. That's how it's always been.
Right.
And that's not to say that anthologies are like inherently bad. Obviously, that's not what we're saying. You can make anthologies and then you can pay those artists what they're worth for their stories and then print them and then they get comps or whatever. But this is not that. So yeah, I don't really understand why this is a thing or why anybody would be in support of it.
Yeah.
Unless you're just filthy rich, in which case just give the money to the printer or give it to an organization that, assists comic creators in a similar fashion without having to pass the buck to the labor, to the people actually producing the thing.
Right.
So I can't really make heads or tails of like what the reasoning of this is.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it's just one of those things that it's just like a bizarre model. And I mean, this publication's had multiple issues. So obviously, they've got people on board with it. So, and I'm not opposed to hearing your argument for this. If you can present a completely like well-centered argument as to why this is something that should be a thing and why you think more people should do it, by all means, please tell us, because I can't really see the reasoning behind it. Yeah, I mean, because this is kind of just the polar opposite, really, of the pay it forward model we were just talking about on that Goes book. That is free, but also like it has a model to where no one's really losing money. So it's like there's ways to do this, obviously. So it's like it's interesting to hear about different models of distribution. But yeah, if you can make a an argument that shoots our stance to shit, we welcome it. There's just I don't personally see any benefit to this outside of for the person in charge of printing.
Right. Yeah. The only thing I can see from this is you have a nice looking thing and you put it on newsstands and it's free.
Yep.
But you can have all those things and not charge artists too.
Yep.
For their labor. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, same here. So, and I wish you success. I don't want anybody to, tank in independent comics. But if for some reason somebody involved with that, publication hears this, just do better. Yeah. Or at least give your reasoning as to why this is a thing. Yeah.
Like, who does this help? I'm genuinely curious. This is not me being malicious.
Yeah.
Or sarcastic or whatever. This is me genuinely asking you a question and hoping I get a response.
Same here. Yeah. Because I mean, like I said, I'm not so ignorant that I'm not going to hear you out. But
right.
If you want to consider this shots fired, fire back, baby.
All right. So before we get into our interview with Aubrey Sitterson, we have a couple loose ends to tie up. First, as usual, if you have any questions or you want to follow our work, you can go to Instagram or Twitter. I'm at Mort Crimp Jr. Cam is at Cam Del Rosario. You can also go to @GutterBoysPod. And if you want to support the Gutter Boys, go to patreon.com/GutterBoys and get yourself a nice tier. For $5, you can get access to all of our bonus content, all the bonus episodes that we release on the off weeks for our general episodes. You also get a behind-the-scenes look at our process, what we're working on, things that we're reading or interested in, and a bunch of other fun stuff. You can also participate in our Discord, which is free to anyone. You will have to DM @GutterBoysPod to get access to that. And all we want is no cops.
Yep.
Please don't screenshot. Don't do any of that shit. We're just looking for like-minded people to talk about comics.
And if you want a physical zine mailed to you every month, there is a $10, $15 for international patron tier. We have a 12-page publication called Pimp Digest. It is comics and work in progress from both of us, as well as, special guest appearances and interviews with, friends of the pod. So you can also find that on our Patreon as well.
Oh, also real quick, if you like last week's guest, Ben Sears is also featured in a new Comics Journal article covering Young Shadow, as well as his strong interests in telling the police to go fuck themselves, which we fully support.
Yep.
So go check out that article if you can. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Aubrey Sitterson. So stay tuned.
Hell yeah.
We'll be right back.
Soggy Landing.
Soggy Landing is a tropical island destination full of magic and adventure.
Soggy Landing.
Soggy Landing's parlors serve the grog of your dreams.
So soggy, so strong.
Soggy Landing's Board of Tourism warns, wizards not welcome. Any wizards will be summarily executed.
No warlocks either.
Soggy Landing's Punch and Judy show you the part when Miss Piggy and Kermit fuck.
What in the world?
Soggy Landing is a webcomic that you can read at studygroupcomics.com.
Come to Soggy Landing. There's plenty to do in the rain.
This program is brought to you in part by a generous donation of $12 by the Michael Sweater Foundation for the Arts. At Michael Sweater Foundation for the Arts, we are committed to supporting stuff that rocks. Michael Sweater encourages you to also sign up for the Gutter Boys Patreon and to buy the latest issue of Strangers, Bubbles, and other zines about comics. Also, please make more zines about comics and comics history. It doesn't even have to be good. Also, Silver Sprocket rules.
Now, back to our program.
Recording?
I am, yeah. You said go, didn't you?
I did.
Man, this is your show, man. I'm not going to screw up my first ever Gutter Boys appearance. Gutter Boy, I guess.
Yeah, singular for today. Unfortunately, Cam could not make it to this recording. He's having some internet issues. Shout out to Spectrum for your great service out there.
Thanks, Spectrum. We have Spectrum out here, too. They're wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful people.
Yeah, that seems to be the overall consensus for that company. Anyway, welcome to Gutter Boys. I am your singular host for this evening, JB. And today we're joined by our special guest. He's a comic writer. Please don't boo him. And
don't start on that.
I'm
one of the good ones. I'm one of the good ones.
We've talked all the way from Los Angeles, California. You will not break up the rhythm of my intro. Aubrey Sitterson. Aubrey, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's been a long time coming. I feel like we've been talking about me coming on this show as long as the show has existed. So I'm thrilled it's finally happened.
Yeah, it might have been even a conversation we had before it existed.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. It's been a while since I've actually talked to you.
Yeah, outside of like texts and stuff.
Right. Group messages or whatever. I don't count that as like real interactions.
No, I don't. Yeah. I try not to think of it at all.
Yeah, right. Right.
I go into a fugue state when I go into the group chat.
Yeah, that's fair. That's the only way you can really walk into those hellscapes. Shout out to Ramon, you fucking piece of shit. Your fucking podcast sucks. Anyway, we're just kidding. We love your podcast and we love you, Ramon. So Aubrey, I hear you've been doing some walking and talking.
What do you mean?
You're hyping up some projects that are about to be announced.
Is that called walking and talking?
That's a term I just came up with on the spot.
I like it. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to keep up, man. The rhythms of Gutter Boys. Gutter Boy. Yeah, dude. I've got a new Kickstarter going on right now, Stone Master, with my comic book story professional wrestling co-creator, Chris Moreno. We're finally working together again on a fiction thing this time, because the wrestling book was nonfiction, obviously. And we've been talking for years about doing a thing, especially after the wrestling book, because, doing nonfiction is tough. It is way tougher than I expected. Like I still tremble thinking about like all the research and how much work it was to write that thing. But the other thing about doing nonfiction, aside from how much work it is you have certain masters that you're beholden to, because you've got things you need to cover and things you need to accomplish. And
of course, right.
You don't have the freedom that you do with fiction. And Chris and I really wanted something that we could cut loose on and really highlight what we saw as our individual strengths and our strengths as a team and each other's strengths. And we put together Stone Master, which is as you might be able to kind of piece together from the title, it's a stoner kung fu comic. It's set in Los Angeles. It's set in the fictional Los Angeles neighborhood of Chavez Heights, and it follows a burnout martial artist who does blazed fist kung fu, fighting off and trying to defend his neighborhood from this oppressive and rapacious corporation moving in and buying up all the land and all the buildings and pushing people around. And that's what it's about. It's on Kickstarter right now. Hopefully, we're talking in the future, but I don't know. Tenses on podcasts, pre-recorded podcasts, always confuse me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds great. I mean, I've seen some images of the book. It looks really well drawn. I mean, Chris knows what he's doing. So
Chris is great. He's brilliant. He's one of these guys who, if you talk to other cartoonists, people are like, oh yeah, Chris is great. But it's one of the things that he does best is humor and comedy. And for so long in American mainstream comics, the line has been that, funny ain't money. And on Kickstarter, that's not the truth, man. Because it's a different audience, and it's a kind of more, I think it's a more representation, what I can tell of it so far is a more representational audience of, human beings at large, as opposed to the very specific audience that you're going to through the comic book direct market. And people love funny stuff, man. And so we're really excited to give them this bonkers, gonzo, action-packed stoner kung fu thing.
That sounds really good.
Thanks, bro.
Would you say that there's any, because, well, I guess we can't really talk about this book without talking about some other projects that you have.
Sure.
That are going
Let's
to
talk
be
about all the
announced.
projects.
Yeah, because you work on like 4 or 5 projects at a time, it feels like.
Well, it's funny. First of all, you kind of have to, just in terms of getting things off the ground. I find that you have to, because it takes so long, and things fall through, and people get busy with other stuff, and directions change and things. So yeah, I've got a ton of stuff hitting this year, and it's in large part because last year, because of the hiatus that so many books and publishers went on, everything got pushed back. And so now everything's hitting at once. And it's
right.
2021 is going to be a big year for me, man, but it is, it's a lot for sure. I've got, trying to think about what's going to be announced by the time that this airs. So The Worst Dudes with Tony Gregory at Dark Horse. That's a 5-issue limited series. It's like we tell people it's like Lobo meets Big Lebowski. So it's like a really raunchy sci-fi Chandler-esque detective story, right? Like Big Lebowski or Long Goodbye or Inherent Vice or something like that. That's starting up in June. Starting up in July from Dark Horse is Savage Hearts, which is with Jed Dougherty and is a sexy jungle fantasy rom-com with a big barbarian lady and a Lie the Beast Man and a bunch of dinosaurs and evil sorcerers and romance. And then Beef Bros, I was talking to the printer today. I'm getting issues delivered to me very, very soon. And those are going to be hitting people's mailboxes around the time that the Stone Master Kickstarter is running. And then I've got another book that's coming out later this year that I can't talk about yet. So it's a lot, man. But it's Stone Master, Worst Dudes and Savage Hearts were both originally supposed to launch last year. But again, because of the COVID, Diamond not shipping comics for however many months, everything kind of got backlogged. So we're coming out now.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is a lot of similarities, thematic similarities to Beef Bros and to this new book, Stone Master.
Yeah. I mean, it's about like guys wanting to protect their neighborhood and the people's livelihoods that call that place home. 100%, man. I mean, that is very much a preoccupation of mine these days. Because, we're both pretty political guys, I think, and pretty similar politically. I'm sure we could pinpoint differences, but the purpose of this they're not really substantive,
Right.
And, I spent a lot of time thinking about kind of core problems and sort of foundational issues and, where it starts and where it starts to get better. And I think that if you're talking about improving things and making things better, it's got to start. And this isn't like to disregard other approaches and things, right? But especially if you're talking about heroic fiction, right, which is the kind of overarching genre that both of these things are in. I think that's a really meaningful and profound tact to take, and I think it's one that we don't see enough of, honestly, man. Like whenever people do kind of in comics, especially whenever people do politically minded heroic fiction, whether it's superheroes or something else that can be kind of filed under heroic fiction, what you typically see is, signifiers, right? You see signifiers, you see kind of like window dressing and like palette swaps and kind of like you have all the accoutrement of change and something new, but it's all just in the service of the same stuff. And that was a big part of how we talked about Beef Bros and kind of like recasting superheroes in this more egalitarian light. And Stone Master doesn't hit the politics anywhere near as hard as Beef Bros does, but those themes are for sure there, man, because those are themes that are on my mind all the time, especially after this past year and just watching everything going on in the world.
Right. Even looking back to your prior work and how it kind of all led up, either directly or indirectly to the new body of work that you have. Like, what's your feelings about that? Like, do you think that trajectory was sort of carefully guided by you, or is it just something that you felt that it, kind of happened naturally based on, your values and what you're interested in as a writer?
You're talking about like the types of books that I've done?
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you that I've had this like carefully thought out plan for what books are coming out and things like that. And more recently, especially, when it comes to the Kickstarter stuff, like Beef Bros and Stone Master, for sure, because those are books that we control on the creator end entirely, right? So there's no other stakeholders. But yeah, man, everything else has just been getting in where I can fit in. It's just been getting things approved, right? And so, and that's not to say that I'm not excited about and don't love these projects, because I do. But yeah, I certainly am not at the level, like if you're a big name, you can kind of really dictate schedule and your creative output over the course of years. That's not a pleasure that I've had yet. So the fact that it looks like it's this carefully curated plan thing thrills me. I'm very happy to hear that, but it's not the truth, unfortunately.
Well, I personally wouldn't believe that either, but I think it's something worth thinking about when talking to writers in this medium, because everybody gets here pretty much the same way. You don't make a decision to become a comic book writer specifically unless you had some long history with the medium before as a fan or a reader.
Sure. Yeah.
So what kind of work influenced your work, just in general? Just like, what would you say? And obviously people's tastes change and people pick up new things and what have you, but like across the board, what would you say are some of the most influential things?
So the biggest one is something I only kind of realized in the last like 5 or 6 years, how crucial and foundational it was to my comics sensibilities. And it's Berkeley breathed comics. So Bloom County and Outland both were huge for me as a kid. I was primarily a newspaper comic strip kid because I didn't live, I lived out in the burbs and there was there's just nowhere for me to go and buy things, but comics showed up in the newspaper. And when we moved around a fair bit when I was a kid, my grandfather would send me comics from Richmond, Virginia, which is where all my family is, because they had different, like he would send me the weekly, like the Sunday comic strips, because they had different comics than wherever we were living at the time. But no, the Berkeley breathed stuff I adored. And I think what struck me about that and what stuck with me the most is that guy's comedic pacing and his willful absurdity. And I didn't realize until much later that like Berkeley breathed is basically it's Gary Trudeau plus Vaughn Baudet, who, and I love both those guys too. But yeah, man, Berkeley breathed stuff, there's like a seething anger beneath it too, even when he's being really sweet or goofy or funny or sad. Like there's just this irritation. There's a bite to it, and his comedic timing is impeccable, and the way he builds to beats is something I find myself thinking about when I'm writing humorous beats for sure, but even writing dramatic or action, or the romance beats in Savage Hearts are very much informed by pacing from newspaper strips, specifically Berkeley breathed.
It's awesome. Okay. I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. He's I adore that stuff. And I still have all my old collections, because like when I would get like the collections from like Walden Books at the mall or whatever, and I've still got all the old ones. And the cool thing about them too is because like, I read them when I was in elementary school, and they're comics talking about like hyper specific political issues from the mid 80s. But there's like funny animals and like weird, bizarre stuff going on in it. So that's what I responded to.
Okay.
But there's this backdrop of like weird political stuff that I didn't understand at the time. But like as time goes by, I'll learn something about politics from the 80s and be like, oh yeah, that's what that Berkeley breathed Bloom County strip was about. It's wild, man. And I don't know, they really reward, for me, they're really rewarding to go back and look through too, for that reason. Because I like every time I look at them, I understand a little bit more about what the hell he was talking about.
Right. Going back to something you said earlier, just sort of like making these stories about real people, or at least more grounded people. It reminds me of the approach that Fleischer had with their animations. Because, you have Fleischer and then you have Disney. And Disney,
is it Fleischer? I always say Fleischer.
It could be Fleischer. I could be mispronouncing it.
Okay. I don't know. One of us is an idiot.
But, Disney had their like super vibrant approach to animation, and all of their output was coming out of Hollywood, or LA at least. And then you have Fleischer Studio, which is, still very much in New York City, and their output is far more like, I hate to use the term grittier, but it's not this pristine world. It's like
vaudeville. It's Jewish. It's New York Jewish vaudeville is what they're drawing from in that stuff.
Right.
In a way that Disney did as well, but they sanitized it in a really heavy way, man.
Yes, especially like as the decades passed, going into like the 40s and the 50s, you very much see that, so much to the point that Fleischer even started making their animations look more like Disney's in terms of like, cleaner, more vibrant colors, that kind of thing. But yeah, when I think about those new books that you have coming out, and just in general, sort of your output, a lot of stuff maybe people will never read because they're just like projects that were worked on and what have you. But you do see similarities just in terms of like, you're much more interested in the stories of like how these things affect like regular people and not just these like deities,
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's been a while for me figuring out kind of my tact and my voice in writing comics. And that's become a big part of it, honestly, is finding a way to, one of the things that makes comics difficult is that the reader is at a remove, and it's difficult to make a comic of this a visceral experience for people. I find that the moment, whenever I see like a thread talking about like, talk about the comics that made you cry or like whatever, like I don't know, like I don't get that hit off of comics the same way I do off of movies or novels very often. Yeah. And it's a complicated thing, and I'm not exactly, I don't understand the reasons fully, but I think that a lot of it has to do with the distance at which we appreciate and read comic book stories, right? And I think there are formal things that you can do, and I've been trying to do more of to kind of pull people in. But I think that part of it is their narrative choices too, right? Like comics, it's tough to have these broad comics medium discussions without seeming like you're talking only about superheroes, but the medium in this country has been defined by superheroes for so long that it's difficult to break them apart. And even when you're reading work that isn't superheroes, right? Like if you're reading direct market genre comics, that stuff is still heavily informed by superheroes. It's what everybody making those comics grew up reading. So I don't know. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Because it's difficult. I think it's tough. I think it's tough to keep the focus on actual people while still playing to and utilizing and exploring what I like most about comics, which is, creating these fantastic, how about this? Creating blueprints for someone else to create these fantastic visuals. Right.
Yeah. Just grounded enough so that you're familiar with what you're seeing take place, but just absurd enough so that there's still like a level of whimsy, I guess. That's a lack of a better word.
Yeah, man. Well, and visual interest. Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the biggest driving factors in the writing I'm doing these days is making sure that every page looks rad.
Yeah, right.
Like don't write a page that is impossible for an artist to make look rad. Yeah. Right. And like that, I know that sounds like a goofy bro thing to say, but you can define rad however you want, right? Like as long as it's visually interesting. And I think it's a thing that's really easy for writers to forget because they get caught up in, I need to do the story stuff. I need to get the dialogue and the character. It's like, nah, man, the first priority is always to make sure that every single page looks awesome. Because otherwise people are just going to flip. That's why people are accustomed to burning through a comic in like 5 minutes. Because they don't spend any time with it because there's no reason to, because it doesn't look very good.
Right. Or the idea that it's a disposable product and it's meant to be consumed quickly and then set aside. I think that has a lot to do with it too.
I agree.
Like, there's a lot of like cultural attitudes about comics that I would say is almost as bad to the industry as the industry is to itself.
Yeah, man. I think I like the idea of the ephemeral art. As wrestling fans, I think that, I think this is something interesting that, people talk all the time about the similarities between comics and wrestling, and most of the time what they talk about is the similarities between superhero comics.
Right, they're talking
wrestling.
about myth creation, right?
Yeah, and I think that is like, I guess, but I think that's like a really shallow thing to appreciate. One of the things that I find most interesting in comparing comics to wrestling is the fact that
no one has healthcare. Oh wait, no, you were saying something else. Sorry, my bad. Whoops.
The fact that both of them are so rooted in decades of creating work and art that not just is viewed as ephemeral, but is ephemeral, right? Like, it's only been recently that like something that happened on Monday Night Raw isn't just completely lost to memory.
Sure.
Right. Unless you had like a VHS tape of it or something.
Right. Unless you're that kind of fan. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And comics have been the same way for most of their existence. And it's a really interesting thing to think about, like, you know, like, and it's easy to pinpoint, you know, the bad parts of that, right? The fact that people kind of devalue the art and they don't spend enough time with it and stuff. And I think that can be true. But I think there's also something really liberating and freeing about working in a medium where, you know, there is going to be a next one. And this is it's about creating a singular, instantaneous experience. And it to me, you know, you can look at that as saying, oh, well, this thing is ephemeral. And people view this thing as ephemeral, therefore it doesn't matter. I don't need to put the effort into it. Or you can view it as, listen, people are going to view this thing as ephemeral, so I need to make sure they fucking remember it.
Right.
You know? And I think that's the mindset I try and take with this stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting because, like, when you think about professional wrestling, like North American professional wrestling, that idea of what wrestling is so vastly different from other countries, even though they all share pretty much like the same point of origin. Yeah. You go to Mexico and Lucha Libre is an entirely different animal compared to what you see on WWE, Raw, or SmackDown or whatever. And the same goes for, you know, if you go to any Japanese promotion. They just kind of approach it differently, and it's entirely 100% cultural based.
Yeah, it's neat, man. It was one of the things I really enjoyed about doing the research for that wrestling book, which was kind of digging back to figure out kind of like the family, the wrestling family tree.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
But yeah, like the kind of like forks in the path, right? And like the divergence points. And then, you know, they come back together and then they veer off again. It's a neat thing. Yeah, I agree. You're right, JP. I mean, you're right.
I'm going to cut all of that out.
I forgot that you edit this.
Yeah, I edit every episode, man.
Yeah, man. I'm so used to just filling time. I'm just going to sit here silently.
You can do that.
Contemplation sub.
You can do that. We have, there's times where episodes where we record like an hour and a half of audio and you'll only get like maybe 70 minutes of it at the most. You know, just cutting out dead air, chunks of conversation that had nothing to do with anything.
All your racial slurs.
All the racial slurs, right? Me trying to spell
an
it
hour
out
of every episode. Yeah.
Me talking about women, white women specifically, and that just has to get cut out because, you know. No, what were we talking about?
Listen, I'm related. I'm related to some white women. They're lovely. I don't have anything bad to say.
That sounds like a white man thing to say. Okay, so you have Stonemaster. Now you, I think this was like 2 years ago. You had another book that was No One Left to Fight.
Yeah, man.
And that was with Fico, I think it was.
Fico Ossio. Yeah, man.
Yes. And so
who with his coloring comrade in arms, Raciel Avila, who helped with the colors on No One Left to Fight. Fico and Raciel did the colors on Beef
That's
Bros
right. I was just about to say that. I recognized those names when I pulled up that issue, and I was like, "Oh, look at that."
That's why it looks bananas.
Yes, the coloring on that is pretty wild. It weirdly enough, it feels less sort of unhinged than No One Left to Fight. I felt like No One Left to Fight was like super in your face vibrant. You know what I mean? Like it beats you over the head with colors.
Interesting. I'll have to look, man. I mean, well, you know, it's the difference. I think the difference too is, you know, Fico draws with his coloring in mind, knowing what he's going to do.
Right.
Whereas with Beef Bros, Tyrell, draws and inks like Tyrell, which is very different.
Friend of the show,
Fico,
Tyrell Cannon,
obviously. And so then they come in, and so it's clearly the same guys, but yeah, it's a very different feel. I'm really stoked for people to see it.
Yeah, they read very, very differently, I feel, and not in a bad way. I mean, I think the sort of bombast of No One Left to Fight compared to, I wouldn't even come close to saying reserved with Beef Bros. There's nothing reserved about Beef Bros.
No.
But it seems, it definitely seems more in line with what's going on with the art. And it also comes down to personal preference. I think I like the colors more on Beef Bros than I do on No One Left to Fight. And I think that's just me as an artist saying, I think this looks better.
Yeah.
You know, and
Fine,
having
man.
no other input other than that, just I think this looks better. That's it. You know, that's the end of it.
I think they're also refining their approach too. Honestly,
yes, and you
Fico
know what? I think
Ossio.
refinement is a better term to describe the coloring on Beef Bros. You know, compared to No One Left to Fight. That it is. Yes.
Just imagine if we ever get to come back for more No One Left to Fight. Imagine how good that's gonna look, huh?
Yeah. Is that a thing yet?
Well, there's a big old number 1 on the. I'm looking at the spine of the trade right now. There's a big old number 1. This is the line I always tell people. There's a big old number 1 on the spine, so you know what that means.
Right. Numbers dictate that. Yeah.
They wouldn't put a number 1 on there unless, you know. So
I mean, have you been talking with anyone at the publisher to be like, hey, what's the interest in doing another issue of this or what?
yeah, man, we would love to. Fico and I have.
That's not the question I asked. I didn't ask if you would love to do it. I asked you any word as to whether or not this will be a thing.
Well, there's a big old number 1 on the spine,
God. Okay,
and you know what that
we'll
implies.
just put that. We'll put a pin in that and be like,
you might want to edit that out too. Yeah,
maybe it'll happen. But the response to that book was pretty positive, right?
Really positive. Yeah, man, I was thrilled. It was a big deal for me. Not just my first work at Dark Horse, which Dark Horse is one of those comics publisher names that to me still holds a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. Just because of the work that they have published over the years. And so that was a big deal. Working with Fico was a big deal. It was my first fiction creator-owned book, because I had done the comic story professional wrestling, but again, fiction, nonfiction, very different. But also it felt like No One Left to Fight really felt like my last shot. Which sounds like very like grim and
very fatalist, but, right?
Yeah, but it really did, man. It felt like this was kind of my last opportunity to get what I wanted out of comics, and what I wanted and what I still want out of comics. It took me a long time to figure this out, but what I want is freedom to tell weird stories, like very like weird, specific, idiosyncratic stuff, and I'm really blessed that I did it, man. I carved out. As of right now, like 2021's a big Aubrey year. I've carved out a little space, man, to do some weird stuff. To do a shonen manga riff fight comic about getting older. To do a Chandler-esque Lobo story. To do a jungle rom-com. To do crazy Ancom superheroes and left-leaning Robin Hood stuff, which is a backup that I'm doing with Goran Gligovic in Savage Hearts. To do stoner kung fu comics, man. Like the fact that I'm getting to do all these aggressively weird, strange concepts, stuff that typically doesn't fly in comics. It's I don't know, man. It's overwhelming to think about. Yeah, so No One Left to Fight was a big turning point for me. It opened a lot of doors. It kind of showed folks kind of what I've been howling about in the wilderness for years, which is, listen, people will like this stuff. It's different. It's not the typical stuff that you're seeing in the direct market, especially not from like Marvel and DC. But there's an audience for it. There's an audience out there for this stuff, and I've been really gratified to learn that I was right. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, people will vote with their dollars, I guess.
I guess.
The only fair and just way.
Yeah, man. That's how democracy
exactly
works, voting with your dollars.
Yes, exactly. This is what democracy looks like, folks. Yeah, so are you Asian now, or what's the deal? No, I'm just kidding.
No, not yet. I've been trying. I've been working really hard, man.
You're working really hard.
I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna get in trouble if I tell you how I've been trying. No, I'm not. Contrary to any rumors that you might have heard, I am not Asian.
Confirmed
non-Asian. Aubrey Sitterson. Yeah, despite what the name Charles Aubrey Sitterson.
I was going to say a very Eastern sounding name, if you ask me.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't pronounce this name. I don't understand. Go back to your country. Thank you. So what made you decide on this new story with the Stone Master?
Yeah, man. So Stone Master came from me and Chris talking about things we love. right? It's equal parts kung fu flicks, right? Obviously, Drunken Master is a big influence. Obviously, Sammo Hung is a big influence. If you look at, the visual profile of our lead, Frankie Wong.
Right.
But, also Cheech and Chong stuff. That was a huge, huge touchstone for Chris growing up. He watched them with his dad, and it's something I came to later in life. But also, I think they're a hoot, man. And, kind of finding a way to blend this stoner comedy sensibility, right? Whether it's Cheech and Chong or Harold and Kumar or Pineapple Express, trying to blend that with a classic kung fu movie structure, right? In terms of how those movies, because it's a genre unto itself, and genres have conventions, and trying to build something that hits both of those notes, because in discussions with Chris, we realized that, I mentioned it earlier, talking about the, playing to our strengths and really getting an opportunity to kind of flex the storytelling muscles that we are proud of. This project ticks off all the boxes, right? Because it hits like this kind of goofy, weird comedic stuff that Chris and I love doing, but it also gives us room for this big bombastic action that I love. I mean, if you've read my work, that's my favorite stuff to write.
Right, yeah.
You are
almost
scenes.
Purely a genre guy. That is for sure.
I am. Yeah. And I'm proud of that. That's the work I enjoy, no matter what medium we're talking about. I love genre work. I love work that not only is in a genre, that is genre work, but that engages with the genre.
Yeah.
It engages with the tropes and the history of it. And, that's what we're trying to do with Stone Master as well, and trying to do it from a few different angles, right? Because it's very much a stoner comedy. It's very much a kung fu story, but it's also very much an LA story. LA, it's in a fictional neighborhood so that we could take some liberties with specifics of things, right? But if you look at which I don't know, I didn't want to get angry letters from people about this street corner not looking like that or whatever, it's impossible to see the Hollywood sign from there or whatever,
Right.
So it is a fictional neighborhood, but it's very much informed by the places that we live in and go to and spend time in Los Angeles. It's really an effort to engage with kind of all three of those. That's the Venn diagram, right? It's stoner comedy, it's kung fu movie, it's LA story, and we're trying to live right in that meaty part of it.
Are there going to be any John Woo style bong rips?
Dude, funny you should ask. So we're recording this ahead of time, man. I'll send it to you once it's done. But yeah, one of the pages on the Kickstarter page, it's a big old spread with Frankie Wong taking a monster bong rip, man. And it's so Chris is coloring it right now. I've seen the black and white of it, and it's phenomenal. And yeah, we're also offering that as a print. It's Frankie taking this big bong rip and all of this California stuff and weed stuff and kung fu stuff, and a big montage, and it says "Let it rip" over top of it, so you can put it up on your bulletin board. Probably not at work, but maybe maybe at home, maybe above your home office desk. Everybody's working from home now anyway,
right?
So, it works.
And when is that supposed to be released?
So we are, the Kickstarter launched on 4/20, obviously. Of course. And it's going to be in people's hands by October.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A spooky drop.
Yeah, very spooky.
Very nice.
Should we talk about the elephant in the room, man?
Sure. What's the elephant in the room? Go ahead. Well,
here's the thing, man. I'm fully aware of the cultural moment that we're releasing this book in. And as established earlier in this interview, I am not Asian. I'm not Asian now. And
right
now,
unlike prior,
nor have I ever been.
There you go.
And neither is my co-creator Chris Moreno, also not an Asian guy. And we're recording this ahead of time, and I know that this is gonna come up about. This is a constant conversation that people are having, and it's good that people are having it about who can tell what types of stories, right? And what's appropriate and things like that. And I reached out to you about coming on Gutter Boys to talk about it, because it's not a conversation I really want to have on social media, if you can imagine.
What?
I don't honestly.
You don't want a nuanced conversation to take place on Twitter? Get out
but
here.
I knew that people were going to ask. Sure. I know that this is a thing that's going to come up. And so I really wanted to have I wanted to have the conversation with someone who I like and respect, and has
unfortunately Cam couldn't make it, so
you're
stuck with me.
So I'm doing the best I can. Yeah. Listen, you got to work with what you got. But no, man, I wanted to have a place where I actually had this discussion, man, and talked about, especially in the midst, because, we're recording this early, so who knows what is going to be going on in 3
Asians
weeks
are deemed illegal now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is illegal to be Asian in America now. Sorry, folks.
But right now at the time of this recording, the Stop Asian Hate campaign, it's a thing at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Yeah,
and I think that leads into discussions about representation, as well as representation in fiction, as well as representation in the people creating that fictional work. So it's a thing that we are keenly aware of. And as you know,
so that's why all profits are going to me, an
JB,
Asian.
Yeah.
Right.
We're buying JB a boat.
Yeah. I appreciate that, Aubrey. From one Asian brother to another. I appreciate
Yes. And that's how you get in.
Yeah.
But no, man, it's something that I spent a lot of time chit-chatting with friends about and thinking about, and it's a difficult thing. And, the way I've been, and I would love your take on this, man. Like,
I think Akira Yoshida should have written this, personally. But that's just me.
Even that's a really interesting work. But
real in-depth knowledge of Asian culture, and you just passed it on, didn't you? Real shame.
So in prepping for Stone Master, we thought and talked a lot about kind of what are, and I did this with every project, right? Not just Stone Master, but I think about what are the things people are going to complain about.
Okay.
Like what are the things people are going to get mad about?
All right.
And this is, it has to do with my history in comics, as well as just kind of like the state of social media, right? Because people do look for, there are bad faith actors out there, right? So no matter what you do, there are people who are going to find something to complain about, right? There are, and so no matter what project you're doing, I think it behooves a creator to think, okay, how does this go wrong? Right? How does this spin terribly? And I don't know, that's a paranoid thing to do. You're laughing. Is that crazy? Did I do this?
No, I think that's an industry thing. I feel like, like also found in other media, it's not
of course
specific to comics. It's
everything. Yeah, man. Yeah. And I think that, and I think that it's healthy and good and smart for a creator to think, okay, how might this rub people the wrong way? How might people get upset by my work? And sometimes the work you're doing is designed to upset people, and maybe that's okay. Stone Master is not designed to upset people. So that is something that we thought about. Is like, could this upset people, and why might they be upset by it? And to my mind, thinking about when people get upset about a white person writing, or even, a person writing a cultural identity that is not their own, right? When people get upset about that, there's like a few different reasons that they might be upset, right? Mm-hmm. And like the first is, if a new Shang-Chi book gets announced and it's written, or like, I remember it was a while ago, I forget what his name was, but there's a Native American hero at that Marvel has, that they announced a new book, and like nobody working on it was Native American, and people were very upset about that, because the truth is, if you are a marginalized identity and you're trying to work in comics, for almost the entirety of comics history, you've been confined to writing characters of your identity, right? It's a thing that Christopher Priest has talked about a lot, about like how he just always got stuck writing the black characters, right? And so if you then take those characters and let white people work on them instead, then that is, in a very real way, that's taking an opportunity away from these marginalized identities. And that's a criticism that people have of stuff at Marvel and DC.
Yeah, and that's also assuming that those people are at all interested in writing about those characters.
Exactly, right. Because it's a thing that it becomes a very sticky thing, because as I said,
it's a lose-lose situation.
Man. Fortunately, we sidestep that with Stone Master, I think, because Stone Master is not at one of these places. It's not, it's not a job. It's not an assignment that was given to us. It's a thing we created. So, I hope we're safe from that one. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm a little offended that you didn't ask me to draw this.
No, and they didn't ask you to draw Stone Master?
Yeah.
That would be worse, because you're not Chinese. That would be even worse.
No, that's the same thing. It's the same thing, basically. I mean, when you think about it. I don't know. When the book was announced, and by that I mean I saw it on my feed from you.
Right.
I didn't really think about it beyond, Aubrey has another book. Fucking Jesus Christ. Like, leave some room on the shelves for other people, Aubrey. That was the only thing.
I refuse. It's all mine.
Yeah, it's the only thing I could think about, really. And it wasn't until you brought it up, actually, that I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I could be, misconstrued or whatever in a negative light.
Yeah. And I'm worried about it, man. This segues into the other thing, right? Another complaint, and a lot of this stuff gets conflated, right? And it just becomes like kind of this ball of, I don't even know, just issues, right?
Yeah.
Ball of issues. I wanted to say outrage, but that's not
ball
I
of
issues. I didn't want to say outrage because that makes it seem like I'm being I'm looking down my nose at
sure,
it, right?
Sure,
Or
right,
saying,
right,
like,
yeah.
and that's not the intent, right? Because these are valid concerns, man. The other criticism that you see lodged against stuff in this when it comes to these representation issues is actually like executional in nature, right? Somebody reads a book written by a white guy about feudal Japan, and it's just like nothing but like the worst stereotypes, right?
Sure.
and that is a very specific, again, valid complaint and a criticism that should be lodged and discussed. And when it comes to Stone Master, well, the first thing I would kind of say to that is, well, it's not a Chinese story, right? It's not even a Chinese American story, really. It's a story with a Chinese American in it, but it's an LA story, right?
Yeah.
It's about Los Angeles, right? So we're not trying to say something about the Asian American experience. We're not trying to say something about the Chinese American community in Los Angeles. Like, that's not the purview of this book, right? This book is about Los Angeles. And one of the things that Chris and I we're transplants to Los Angeles. We're not from here, from the East Coast, but we love it here. And one of the things we adore about it is something we were talking about in regards to Chicago before we went live, is how multicultural it is. And to do a book about Los Angeles that doesn't actively engage with and explore how truly multicultural the city is would seem disingenuous and inaccurate. And at a certain point, like if people read the book and they think that it's it traffics in offensive stereotypes, or we do certain things wrong and we get things wrong, I hope people tell us. I hope we hear about it. But that's a criticism that should come after people read the book, I would think. Right? Are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still listening.
Okay. Well, I know you're listening, but I mean, do you agree? Do you take issue with that?
No, not especially.
I want to hear if you do.
Okay, so you have two interesting tropes. One is like specifically about Asians, right? Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other trope, the stoner trope, that has really not much of a connective tissue with like Asian tropes or Asian characters or anything like that.
Tommy Chong, Harold and Kumar.
Is Chong really Asian?
I think he is multi-ethnic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Harold Kumar is a little contemporary, so like that,
okay.
I don't really think about that. But like in terms of like when you think of like stoner movie tropes, stuff that was set in stone in like the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
I don't think of like Asians,
Yeah, typically not.
Kung Fu, sure. Yes, of course. Of course. They didn't call it the Kung Flu just for fun. It was, it's like a very pointed thing.
Fun was part of it, but
yeah, exactly. It
wasn't just for fun.
It's a very easy play on words for a very well-established trope, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So combining those two things to me is interesting because really they shouldn't connect. Like there really shouldn't be any story that combines those two things well.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Have you seen Drunken Master?
I have, but again, that's all alcohol. Like alcohol-based humor, sure. Yeah, you see that in Asian culture all the fucking time. Like, that's not new. Stoner jokes? No. That is not a thing.
Well, I think that's hopefully what makes it interesting to people.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it is very interesting to bring those two things, these two established kind of genres, and merging them into a setting of Los Angeles, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I'm stoked about it, certainly. But, and so that's kind of what I see is like the second criticism that we could face, right? Which is that, look, what you're doing is poorly done and it's offensive, right? And
your writing sucks, and it actually offends
bad.
Me and everyone that looks like me.
Dude, and that's a risk with everything that I do, right? That's if you're creating art, that's always a risk that people are going to read it and be like, wow, this is bad.
Yeah.
And here are the reasons why.
Right.
And the way you defend against that, the way you prevent that from happening is research and talking to people and reading things and going places and making sure that what you're doing feels authentic. And so that's what we've done. And we've done the best we can. And hopefully we stick the landing, but that'll be for readers to decide once they read it.
Yeah.
The third potential criticism that, and so those are criticisms that I'm willing to just kind of like bear the brunt of, right? If people think that us doing Stone Master is taking work out of Asian creators' mouths, I don't know. I can't really argue with that. But I do think, to my mind, at least, it feels a little bit different than like a Shang-Chi book at Marvel.
Right.
Right. If people think that we don't do it well, I can't argue with that either, right?
Yeah.
Like that's you're free to decide that about any of my work, right? The third criticism is a little bit tougher, right? Because to my understanding, the logic goes, are you the one to be telling this story? Should you be telling this story? And that, that's a question that people, in like tweet threads and stuff are always encouraging creators to ask, right? Of like, am I the right one to be telling this story? And, if this was a story about the Chinese American community in Los Angeles, I would not be the person to be writing it. I just simply wouldn't. And I wouldn't write that story because I wouldn't do it justice. And I know that I wouldn't do it justice. And that's not what this is, right? We talked about that a few minutes ago. So then, the only thing that could make it so it was wrong for us to be doing this book is if it was wrong to write a character that has a different cultural identity and background than you have. And man, I'm not ready to accept that. I don't think anybody actually wants that, right? Like, I don't think anybody wants me to only write about straight white dudes from the South. It would be boring as hell, right? Nobody actually wants that. So yeah, man, that's kind of like how I walked myself through the potential criticisms that we could face with Stone Master. Do you think this is valid? I'm hoping to work this out.
Yeah, you're like figuring this out.
This is how my brain works. I know that's how my brain. Man, I have to talk through things, right? That's how my brain works. Does this track
to a degree? Yeah, because I mean, if it was an unspoken rule that you can only write characters that had your background, then every book would just be about the same white guy. But
yeah, it would be
another
miserable.
issue then that brings attention to is like, why aren't there more creators of color then? Why aren't there more Asian writers? Why aren't there more black writers? Why aren't there any more Latino writers?
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
I told you I've been trying to become Asian.
Right.
We discussed that earlier.
You're doing my work, Aubrey, and I appreciate that.
Trying to.
But
no, man. I mean, I think that's a valid thing, and like, unfortunately, that's not a thing that I can personally fix. Yeah,
no.
But I think that's a valid thing to bring up.
Right. I mean, my main point is that it's like, this is not the systemic issue we need to be complaining about, Like, there's a much larger issue at hand here, is what I'm saying. And I think people just want to get worked up about these types of things because it's the easier fight to have, if I'm being honest.
I think that is very astute, man. I think that, a lot of what you see in any social media skirmish is people kind of launching rockets at targets that they know either can't retaliate, won't retaliate, or if they do retaliate, won't have any real impact on them, right? It's easy to take aim at kind of these like surface level issues without engaging with the deeper ones that could actually, I don't know, start ruffling feathers in a more profound way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see these conversations taking place with editors, and those are the people that are predominantly, at least in the sort of the realm of comics that you work in, would actually have some sway in making changes about this.
Yeah.
So I think the onus isn't on you, is what I'm saying. Like,
I still think it's like it's good and valuable thought process to have. It's a little bit deranged. It's a little bit deranged to look at every project you're doing, looking for the things that people are going to get upset about. And I recognize that. But that's the thing. It's like, my intention isn't to upset people, so I should make an effort not to.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I hope we don't. And I hope that this is all just me. I hope this podcast stands as a testament to my over worrying and no one mentions any of these things. That's my dream. That's my dream.
One could only hope.
Yeah,
One could only hope. All right. So we have some listener questions.
Cool. I was hoping you got some.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, one more time. Does this track to you? We're friends. I would hope you would tell me if any of this doesn't make sense. Aubrey, you're taking a real huge misstep here.
Aubrey, I think you're being a real bigot right now.
That's the thing. I want somebody to tell me. I need somebody to tell me if I am.
I mean, as your friend, And as somebody who's familiar with your body of work, I will say that I don't see it as much of an issue as you do, only because at this point in your career, based on the types of things you've had to deal with, all that has informed how you respond to things or how you think about things, these projects. So I can understand where you're coming from as to like why these things concern you.
Yeah.
You know, it's all very valid, I feel.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you for validating.
And you
me.
know what? I can't even say that what you've provided is sufficient reason for why no one should argue otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, if someone has an issue with it, I'm sure that they will air their grievances.
I'm sure they will.
And I'm sure it'll be in a tweet form, and I'm sure you'll read it and fucking whatever. And
I will send them a link to this podcast episode.
Jesus, please don't do that.
That's the plan.
Oh God. Hey, if you're listening to this right now because Aubrey told you to, fucking turn it off. Turn it off right now.
Get out of here.
Either that or go to bluechew.com right the fuck now and use promo code Gutter.
Does it give you an erection? Is that what it does?
Yeah, buddy.
Have you used it?
No, I haven't.
Are you lying to me?
They won't send us anything.
Oh, really? That's weird.
It's fucking bullshit is what it is.
I think you should buy some so that you can
I'm not paying.
Provide a
product
a valid
that we're hawking on our show.
a knowing testimonial, man.
No.
Listen.
They don't care about that.
If you could tell me before.
Are you saying that because I'm Asian, I have a broken dick?
No, man. What? No. Turn it off.
You've heard it here first. Aubrey says that all Asian people have broken tiny dicks.
Broken dicks. Nah, man.
Tiny, unusable cocks.
I want to hear how this Blue Chew thing works.
We just
I feel like people talk it on their podcast all the time, but nobody talks about the
big questions.
the big throbbing member it gives them. That's what I want to hear.
Well,
about.
you know, when we finally do get our samples over, you'll be the first one to know about it.
That should be a Patreon goal. If y'all raise enough money, you and Cam will do a show fully erect.
I mean, at that point, we'll just set up an OnlyFans.
Yeah,
you know,
that works too.
Brought to you by Blue Chew, the Gutter Boys OnlyFans account. I didn't know an OnlyFans account could have negative subscribers. That's interesting.
Yeah, people it's a petition to shut y'all down.
Yeah, they're paying us to not show our cocks.
See, that's racist, I think.
Okay, so questions.
What were you talking? You were asking, yeah,
questions. We got questions. I'm going to pull them up right now. Okay, from Instagram user Morgan Freeman Ziering, friend of the show, Maddie. What's up, Maddie?
What up, Maddie?
He asks, was it hard to come out to your parents as a writer? That's a good one, Maddie.
I'm not sure my parents understand. I'm not sure my parents know exactly what comic book writing is. I think that they might be. I think they're happy that I'm happy.
Yeah, I think they're happy that you just like have a home, and a job. I think that's the main priority of every parent. Is my child homeless?
No.
Okay, great. They're doing fine.
Listen, man. Again, I want to drive it home here. I'm one of the good ones. I'm one of the good writers.
I thought you were going to say white guys.
That's that more the writers.
Fair.
That's
true though. You are one of the good ones.
We're around.
Like one of about 3,000. All right. Friend of the show, Instagram user Nate Garcia's Cartoons. He asked, what's something you wish you knew when you were 18 relating to your career?
Oh, but it's an endurance game. Everything's an endurance game, man. Let's hear a Kurt Angle story, shall
Jesus. we? Aubrey, are you going to get addicted to pain pills? I think that's where that story is leading.
I remember I heard him on Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast years and years and years ago. And like, it's got to be like 2013, 14, something like that. And he was talking about going to the Olympics and winning the gold medal with a broken neck.
Broken freaking neck.
And he was talking about how, man, Kurt Angle's so dope. That's not what this is about, though. It kind of is. He was talking about how he's not the best wrestler. And Stone Cold Steve Austin was like, what are you talking about? You won a gold medal. You were the best in the world with a broken neck. He says, no, but I wasn't really that good. Like I wasn't technically that good of a wrestler. And I knew that going into it. And so I realized that if I wanted to win, I just had to outlast everybody. I just had to survive. I had to wait and soak up punishment and soak up damage and just endure long enough for the other guy to get tired. And then once the other guy gets tired, then it's smooth sailing. Right. And that's a thing that I, at 18, and I think probably most people at 18 aren't really interested in hearing, because you want what you want and you want it now. right? And
yeah,
like
instant gratification is definitely, yeah.
At 18, I wanted to write comic books, and I wanted to write them now. And I was working on writing comics throughout college. And I got an internship at Marvel, and I went and worked at Marvel. And like this mentality lasted like way longer than it should have for me, right? And it caused me to make mistakes because, you know, if you're rushing, you make mistakes, man. And I wish I had known that, you know, the move is, you know, and this is not a satisfying thing to hear, but the move is to hone your craft and get ready and make sure that when those opportunities do come, that you nail them and you don't fuck them up for rushing and for not exhibiting the patience and endurance. It takes a steady hand, man. That's a more succinct way to say it. I would tell 18-year-old Aubrey that it takes a steady hand, and then I would disappear and let him puzzle over that.
That doesn't seem very helpful to you.
I feel like the part of figuring it out is part of the learning process. He's got to learn it himself.
Now you're sounding Asian. That's a very
it's very wise,
very wise,
very wise thoughts that I'm having.
Next question is from Tyrell Cannon Comics, T Cannon Comics.
Tyrell, my Beef Bros co-creator. Tyrell.
Yep. He asks, Beef Bros 2?
Yes.
And that's the question.
1,000 exclamation points. Absolutely, man. I gotta get this thing out the door, but Tyrell and I are already talking about what a Beef Bros sequel would look like. And we've already been kicking ideas around for it. So 100%.
Very, very good. Very good. Okay. All right.
Well, there's a big old number 1 on the spine, so you know what that means.
All right. From the Discord, a friend of the show, Mark Martinez asked, what is Aubrey's current exercise routine and diet looking like?
Oh, I'm thrilled. So first of all, I think Mark and I follow each other on Twitter. What's up, Mark?
I think you do. Yeah.
Awesome. So here's what I do. 4 days a week, I do Tabatas, right? And what Tabatas are they are like interval training, kind of, but it's very specific. So it's 20 seconds of intense exercise, 10 seconds of rest. You do that 8 times. Then you take a minute rest, and then you do 7 more sets of that. So it's very simple. Let me say it again.
Yeah.
So it is 8 sets of 8 20-second explosive exercises separated by 10 seconds of rest with a minute between each set. That's another way of saying it, right?
Okay.
It sounds very complicated. It's not.
It's not.
You get like an interval timer on your phone, and you can set it up. It's really easy. But depending on the day and how I'm feeling, how my muscles are feeling and looking, I do different exercises. I have a 25-pound steel mace that I use for some of them, and I'll do mace swings.
I'm just nodding. Mm-hmm.
And barbarian squats, and different exercise with that. I have a 35-pound kettlebell that I'll use for sometimes, and I have a couple of light, like 10-pound dumbbells that I do for like more focused work on like arms and shoulders and stuff like that. And I incorporate jump rope and abs into those. That's the core workout. I'm on like a 4-week cycle so it's all very math based. That's why I'm so excited right now. It took me forever.
Again, variation.
It took me. Listen, you said it, man. You said it, not me. So
it's okay. I'm bad at math, so you know.
It took me a really long time to like figure out that I like working out, because what I like about working out is like making tables and math and spreadsheet and like doing all that stuff and like treating it like a regimen, And so it's like a 4-week cycle that I'm on. The first week I will do, and so I'll alternate month to month, but I'll do 2 days using mace and 1 day with kettlebell, and then 1 day, which is a lighter day, which will be my rest day, with the dumbbells. And then the next week I'll do 2 days with kettlebell, 1 day with steel mace, and then again 1 day with the dumbbells. And then the third week I repeat the first week. And then the fourth week I do Tabatas, but I only do it with jump rope and abs. And that's kind of like my rest week to let my muscles recover before I get back into it the following month. Diet wise right now, it's all just macro based. I don't do any of the wacky diets or anything. But I'm at about 151 pounds right now, like a real lean 151 pounds. Yeah, I'm like about like 5'7", 5'8", right? So I'm not a big guy, but like I'm down to like 151. I'm really lean. And I'm trying to put on a little bit. I had leaned out to like 148 or something, and I was just looking really saggy, and it was time to start adding calories back in. And so I'm still in the process of adding calories back and kind of adjusting my macros. I keep my protein at about a gram of protein per pound of body weight right now. And I had been, that had always been something I kept track of. I kept track of calories. I kept track of protein. I didn't really keep track of fat and carbs very much up until recently. When I realized that I've not been getting enough fat, and it was screwing with my testosterone and my hormones, and so I wasn't building muscle the way I should have. So I changed how I was eating, and I upped my fat. And then I realized and so then when I started upping my calories, I kept on eating like these, like, I don't know, I eat a lot like yummy cheeses and cakes and stuff.
Like going to tea houses? What is that?
I had an ounce of blue Stilton before I started this interview.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the yummy cheese. But there's a lot of fat, right? And so like when I started adding calories back in, I was eating way too much fat. And I only just realized that this past week. And what that was doing was it was making me really hungry and sluggish during the day. And so now I've readjusted. So right now what I'm trying to do is still keeping protein at about 151 grams of protein. If I eat more than 35 grams of protein at a sitting, I don't count the excess because the chances are it didn't get absorbed properly. So then I'll go over on protein. But I'm trying to keep fat below 100 grams a day right now. And I'm going to try and drive it down a little bit and try and keep it around 75 unless it's a real special day. And I had a piece of banana cream. I had a banana cream pie yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really nice. And so yesterday was a little bit high on fat, but that's the plan right now. 151 calories or 151 grams of protein, around 75 grams of fat. And then the rest carbs. I just jumped up about a week and a half ago to 2,400 calories per day. And then on days I exercise, I eat a little bit more to compensate for the lost calories from exercising.
Well, since we lost all of our listeners,
you asked.
I did ask. Yeah.
Mark asked, man.
I've never kept track of my diet.
Listen, bro, you need to.
No, I know I need to, but I don't because I don't want to.
I know. I didn't want to for years. And I just it took me so long to learn the thing that everybody always says, which is that you can't outwork your diet. You just can't. And I realized I was putting in so much work at the gym and I was working out so much, but my body didn't look like it. And it was just because I wasn't eating properly. And nobody had ever taught me. It's like really simple stuff, but like nobody had ever taught me how to eat properly because of cultural bullshit, like just unhealthy cultural bullshit with food in this country.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I probably should. I probably never will now that I think about it. So I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh,
dude,
yeah, I'll get that
easy with one of those apps.
Sure.
I use that Lose It app. It's so easy. You can scan UPC codes and it enters in all your shit for you.
You know, for someone that does not pay attention to their diet, I've lost a good amount of fat in the last year.
What have you been doing?
It's just my normal exercise routine.
Oh.
Nothing's changed. I mean, I'll change up my exercise routine every once in a while, but other than that.
What's your normal exercise routine? I'm sure Mark would like to know.
Yeah, only Mark is listening right now at this point, so yeah, I might as well. So I'll tell you what I used to do and what I have been doing over the last year and a half, 2 years. So before, I was working out once every 3 days, which is way too much if you're not paying attention to your diet. Like, that's just, you're working out way too often.
So wait, so you would work out and then you would take 2 days off and you would work out again?
Yes.
That's not too much.
It's too much if you're not. For me, it was too much because I wasn't really. And maybe I was. I don't know. But I felt like I wasn't gaining as much mass as I am now, where I'm working once or twice a week.
Interesting.
It could just be me. Could be specifically to my own body makeup or whatever.
Because diet makes a huge difference too, man.
Yeah, but like I said, the diet never changed.
Interesting. Just Taco Bell.
You know? Yeah, only Taco Bell. No, I mean, I would eat a shake, like a protein shake I would make with like green powder and all that good stuff. And it was like almond milk, vegan protein powder and that stuff. And then I have my daily supplements. So that's never changed either. Like I always take my daily requirements, personal requirements in terms of like vitamins and stuff that I've just been doing out of habit now at this point.
5 Blue Chews right when you get up.
5 Blue Chews back to back. Yes. Just working out with a full blown erection is the only way to really get those gains, baby.
That's what the pump is, man.
Yeah. When people talk about how good that pump feels, that's what they mean.
It's a rock hard dong. That's what it is. Exactly. That's what they're talking about.
No, it was just pretty much the same diet. I would have that drink after every workout, and then I would have maybe another protein drink like that the day following just for recovery. But yeah. No,
Jamie, can I tell you something I just realized?
Yeah.
When I'm talking about this stuff, I think it's so interesting. Hearing you talk about it, I've never been so bored.
And you know what? That's the right response. That's the right response.
I learned
everybody should respond
myself.
to these types of conversations this way.
My poor wife. This is like one of only 2 topics that I have to discuss.
Oh,
just what,
God,
like
man,
what
you
my
gotta mix it
macros
up.
are. Yeah.
You really got to mix it up,
That
man.
poor woman.
Jesus Christ. All right, so I think that's the last question that we have. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, man. I think we did it.
You think this is it?
This is a delight, even without Cam.
All right. Well, Aubrey, where can people find you online if they wanted to?
Oh, man, it's easy. AubreySitterson.com. AubreySitterson.com. That's got everything on it. Twitter is where I'm most active. I'm on Instagram. I'm not great there because I don't draw anything.
That is like not the app for writers.
It's not. I'm on it, but like, I don't know. Don't bother following me there. It's not for me. But I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. You can find me there.
All right.
And Stone Master's running right now, man. Go pledge to Stone Master.
There you go. And where can people go to? Is it kickstarter.com/stonemaster?
Yeah, just, I don't know. If you go to my website.
Okay, it'll be on your website. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So yeah, go check it out. What is it? Pledge? Is that what it is?
Pledge.
Yeah.
I would
pledge some money and get some issues.
Become a backer.
Yeah, that's the term, right? Thank you. Yeah. Become a backer for Stone Masters. That Kickstarter is live. So go check it out. All right. Well, Aubrey, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Dude, thanks for having me.
We will probably have you on again. We do bonus episodes, so we could probably have you back on for one of those.
I would love that.
For our Patreon members, exclusive.
Good. Just for the real fans.
Yeah, for the real ones. Hey, if you're a real one, go to patreon.com/gutterboys. Throw $10 on there, and guess what? You get access to all our bonus content. Baby, who loves content? We know you do, so you should sign up. Okay. All right. Well, that's all. Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you later.